go ahead and look at Cleveland Cliffs, because Cleveland Cliffs used to be that thing that we used to play a lot when it came down to the pandemic, but this thing literally fell off a cliff. Right? Let's go ahead and get with 3M. I like this company because ever since their lawsuits, they've been recovering relatively well. I think this is more like Netflix. This thing has been in that upper register for a very long time after it hit at 1300. So, Lockheed Martin, I really thought this thing was going to break down. We had a nice little gap. I thought we were going to get a little further into it, until this thing just poured all the way out after filling it. But then out of nowhere, it just... Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of BYTTT Before You Take the Trade. I am your host, JD the Great, and we got a lot of work to do. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right to it. Let's go. So the first thing I want to go ahead and break down is that NQ is really putting in this fist fight. Nice solid range that we're operating in, and we came back down to this level. You can kind of see we kind of bottomed right here, kind of like a double bottom. And if this is going to be like some type of center pivot, we should be breaking out of this level around 25,179. If that actually happens, then we can probably take out some of these levels above here. Over here we got oil. Oil's still on that decline. I gave y'all a little bit of the warning in the middle of the season 2 that we were going to test some of these levels. If I squeeze this chart a little bit more, you'll see why we're testing these levels. Is because they want to see, is these areas viable from 2020 off that recovery. You know, when we did this was that negative day. So they're trying to figure out, why are we consolidating this sideways for so long and we're not at least testing any of these areas? So I'm thinking that oil will probably get into that 40 and 20s, somewhere in there. I know that's a very broad total, but if we really think about it, we need to find out where its true support is and enough price gouging over there, oil. Anyways, moving on, gold is giving us a little bit of a pullback. Now, gold is a different dynamic. We do have a bearish divergence that's forming here, but I don't like to talk about bearish divergence because bearish divergence has been showing for the longest, and it's still going to continue to the upside. But I got to point out this bearish divergence because at the end of the day, I do think that the psychological level of 4,500 might be where they're aiming for, and because we're not getting to that level, there's a possibility this might be that pullback. So just be patient and make sure you see your levels. Look at silver. Silver is doing the opposite. And I told y'all before, let me get rid of this. I told y'all before, chart silver. Silver will let you know what the rest of the commodities do. It just literally drags it like the North Pole. Anyways, moving on, we got the British pound. British pound is trying to fill this whole entire area. The rest of this head and shoulders that was here, kind of doing a double top. They'll get rid of this end pattern. We could go ahead and push to that downside. I really think we're going to get British pound down to 1.29, and that will strengthen the dollar, putting pressure on commodities and us other assets. This is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is in the bottom of that downtrend. I've been trying to see if we're going to get to that 103, which we did. I think this is that break, retest, and dump back to 100,000, especially with the fact that October 10th did a massive number on all my diamond hands, folks, and everybody's crying bloody murder. So this is where you actually go ahead and plan properly. All right, so if you haven't learned how to trade, go ahead and DM me. I got a whole entire course that can help you with this, because at the end of the day, the charts leave the fingerprints, just like I was able to take a nice little piece of October 10th, even though the Russell actually got affected by it. But look, it recovered relatively nice compared. Why? If you haven't been on the show, I've explained. They're getting out of the big companies, S&P 500, QQQ, NASDAQ, the ones that has their NVIDIAs and everything else. They're going to go to the small cap. Domestic value is inside your small cap. So international value, cool. That's when the dollar is weak. But when it comes down to the dollar strengthening up, Park your money, IWM, Russell. Anyways, moving on. And the last one we have is the infamous, the undeniable, the force of nature, the US dollar. Of course, that October 10th, there it is. That was the dollar pushing up. But here's the fun thing that you got to understand. Okay? When the dollar is dropping with the market, sit back, relax, unless you know what you're doing. Because somewhere, somehow, some stratosphere, the market is trying to decide what the hell they're about to do. And someone is lying. A big whale might be around and they reposition themselves and they're taking their profits. And there is a lie somewhere. So be patient, chart your chart, you'll be perfectly fine. All right, folks. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So we got quite a bit of things. This is the beginning of our earnings cycle. We got companies like, I don't like companies that don't make no money. But just because of the sake of the fact that I haven't seen this chart in a while, let's go ahead and look at Cleveland Cliffs. Because Cleveland Cliffs used to be that thing that we used to play a lot when it came down to the pandemic. But this thing literally fell off a cliff. Right? And it hasn't really recovered where it needs to be. But I don't like companies that don't make money for shareholders. It costs me money. I don't care how much you do here. And then I think they were going to benefit from the Build Back Better, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, US Steels, right? And Build Back Better didn't actually happen. And Big Beautiful Bill is the next step. And the question is this suppressed for the Big Beautiful Bill? So keep this in your radar just in case you want to go ahead and play something. Right now we're sitting on top of a micro trend, and I love micro trends because what micro trend does, it allows for you to kind of see what they're doing against the major trend. Or I'm gonna give you another angle in like a few seconds. Be patient, folks. Don't rush greatness. All right, let's go ahead and get over to the monthly. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's our lowest point right here. And here is our deviations right there. This was in 08, housing bubble, bang. Then they got the this was right before they started raising interest rate in 11, bang. I think the 2018 also was affected, bang. Pandemic, bang. So that's what happens with this ticker, right? So if we take this angle right here and we put it right over here, wait a minute. Are we breaking out of, yes, we are. We are breaking out of a major move that happened all the way from back here in the housing bubble. Yes. Is this company still around? Yes. So now at the end of the day, this game plan that we're going to be worrying about is what are we going to do with the order blocks? And this is a block that we're worrying about. I think Cleveland Cliffs, oh my God, I can't even talk. Cleveland Cliffs could get to as much as $30. All right. So just put this in your radar. Maybe even park some money on there. This thing was $2. Jeez, how sway. Anyways, moving on. So we got a lot of stuff that we got to go over. Let me not slow down. We got tickers like, for example, all this is the banks first. I forgot about that. Yeah, we got to get a lot of the financial stuff. And with JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, all of them literally saying that things are bad. Be prepared for that. All right, so let's get into Tuesday. Down here is a relatively good company. GE3M, General Motors, is going to be on Tuesday morning. That's going to be the fun stuff. Let's go ahead and get with 3M. I like this company because ever since their lawsuits, they've been recovering relatively well. I think this is more like a bull flag here, so I won't be surprised that we break out of 165, 174. I'm bold enough to pretty much say that we might get into the 200s based on these parameters, as long as we hold this level and break out. So if you want to go ahead and find a spot, I would say just make sure that you're doing everything the right way. Let me go ahead and bring the oscillators. Look at this right here. They should have dropped. It should have dropped, but we're not in the bearish side of the MACD. We got earnings that's going to be coming up on Tuesday, right? So watch this and everything else. If you want to go ahead and get something that's relatively light today so that we can carry it over for earnings, because I'm anticipating that they're going to return money to shareholders with a surprise, because everybody's going to cycle out of tech. And this is going to be one of those companies that you probably don't really like. They do pay dividends over here, which looks like the dividend payout is like mid no, towards the end of the month, so a few days after earnings, they pay out dividends. There'll be a pullback, so you can enter either after the dividends or after the earnings. Is probably the best if you're very risk tolerant. Maybe before the earnings and add right before the dividends and see where the chips may lay. All right, so let's go ahead and keep this going. And we got ourselves on Tuesday night. We have, what a morning. Look at that, 3 MGM. Northrop Grumman, that's the competition to Lockheed Martin, Coca-Cola, Philip Morris, which they should be down in the barrels. And so there goes Lockheed Martin. They were reporting at the same time. Raytheon gets government contracts. At night, we're going to be getting something like Netflix. Remember these bad boys, right? Netflix. This thing has been in that upper register for a very long time. After hitting 1300, it just cannot get up any higher. And this has very large international exposure, so a strengthened dollar is adverse to this stock. So just keep in mind, I will not be surprised that we get back to a psychological 1000 after we broke the 1250. I thought we was going to hold this area, and they said no. Let's go ahead and break this thing on down. So be patient, don't do anything crazy, and you'll be relatively fine. Let's go ahead and grab a couple more tickers. So we got some time here. Of course, today's crap for earnings. Just be patient. Be patient. Capital One Finance is probably going to be one that's going to be very interesting. EQT. Actually, let's grab one of these. Quest Diagnostic. I haven't seen this bad boy in a while. Let's check this out. During the pandemic, they had a little bit of a nice little push. Hold on, let me do this like this. All right, had a nice little. Ooh. Oh my. I guess I should have kept an eye on Quest Diagnostic. Look at that. This is 2022. Where's 2020? So 2020 was that dip down, and they do a lot of that diagnostic stuff, for especially during that COVID and everything else. And listen, they do not go anywhere. I promise you that. Look, returns money to shareholders, prices around that 180, bringing in $2 billion. They are a healthy company. Options just sucks. That's why a lot of people don't really talk about this one, but this one is a good investment, especially the fact, let's say you caught this dip down here around 134, 191. That is solid. Just keep this one in mind as far as that earnings, because if they continue to just stay static and dependable, hedge funds are going to park their money into companies like this, and I'm anticipating that this is going to just be relatively the same. So just keep that in mind. Wrong thing. Let's go back. I'm gonna give y'all one more. Let's. I almost want to go with the Northrop Grumman. Okay, actually, let's do both. We're gonna go Lockheed Martin, and then we'll go to Northrop Grumman. All right. So, Lockheed Martin, I really thought this thing was gonna break down. We had a nice little gap. I thought it was gonna get a little further into it, until this thing just poured all the way out after filling it. But then out of nowhere, it just pushed right back up. This is that drift all the way up. I'm very curious on the catalyst of this earnings, because this earnings basically said, we're not getting y'all any money. And this one right here is like, we're terrible. But again, this is not one that you worry about. You worry about the government contracts. As they add government contracts, more EPS. So I'm anticipating the fact that it's at 18 billion, and over here was at 18 billion. There's gonna be more of the same, even though they're probably waiting for some type of government contract. If this thing sneezes on that contract, this thing's coming right back down. These candles look like retail candles, and this looks like an evening star on the weekly. Not saying it's going to dump, but this thing does not look like it's healthy. Now, are they losing their money to your Palantirs, your Raytheons, and Northrop Grumman? I think that's what's happening, because now they're starting to, embrace other segments in the business, like this one right here, returns money to shareholders. This one right here, lost money to shareholders. So this, well, you can see they lose government contracts, they get affected, major drop, right? But for some reason, Lockheed candles look just weird, just very, very weird. So now we're going to go ahead and see $10 billion right here and $10 billion right here, and they did well with that. So let's see if they can give a surprise on that one. People might be moving their money out of Northrop Grumman into Lockheed Martin if they're doing better, because they're more of the mainstay. This is the competition. It's like AMD versus NVIDIA for government guns and stuff, right? So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that one. One more. One more. Not G, not Coca-Cola, not Philip Morris. I talked about that. You know, since I brought him up, Raytheon. Let's look at Raytheon. And then we got Raytheon, which get a lot of the government contract. And you can kind of see, there you go, $20 billion in revenue, return money to shareholders, almost 21 billion. There you go. And there we go. So consistency across the board. They do pay out the dividends. Again, it's crap compared to the tickers that pays dividends. But for the most part, this is what you want to kind of see from a ticker. You want to see relative consistency. Actually, I haven't looked at this chart in a while. I haven't adjusted this trend line. There's our trend line right here. So they're pulling it back. It looks like it even started this weekly too. So there might be something going on. Oh, actually, is that part of the 10? This might be the bait for bears to come in on something like this, but because of the government contracts, this is something that you're going to probably want to invest in, especially at this base. So I think there's things that are at discount. I just think that they're not in tech. All right. Anyways, I think I gave y'all quite a bit. We pushed very close to 15 minutes. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. Down below, I also have our brand spanking new Compound Central. It is going to be an alert system for my scalpers out there. Go ahead and click the link down below so that way you can go ahead and try 14 days risk-free. All right, folks. So let me know how you like it. Share me some testimonials, and I can go ahead and bring it to the people. Because I do this for y'all, not for me. Anyways, I bid you farewell. Till tomorrow. Have a great day.